This is my husband, Michael. So good to see everybody. It was great what Bryant shared. When Mike and I were getting ready to go to the mission field a long time ago, like probably 15 or 20 years ago, we had a sweet friend who sort of discipled us in missions. And when we were going to Haiti and the DR, we asked her about, well, should we go on hydroxychloroquine and some of these other really powerful drugs so that we don't get malaria? And if we do, should we stay on them? And she just so happened to be a pharmacist with a PhD who worked for Walgreens. And her name's Kathy. She's still a dear friend of ours. And Kathy said, well, you know, Annie, you just have to pray about it. You just have to hear from the Lord about that. You know, He may tell you to take it, but He may tell you not to take it. But you just need to pray and press in and hear what He has to say. And I thought, wow. We need to learn to do that. You know, it is not one size fits all, but we have one Lord, one faith, one baptism. He's the same, but obviously we have the Word, we have each other, but He's going to convict our conscience about what we need to do. So it's really sweet that we can count on the Lord to reveal to us what we need to do, the precautions that we need to take. So anyway, Michael's going to come up in just a second, but the thing that I wanted to encourage everybody about today is, you know, when you talk to people, I don't know if you're seeing it and feeling it, but I feel like a lot of people feel like their lives are on hold, and that this is a waiting period. And I felt like that so much of my Christian life, that I'm just waiting on God. And a lot of times it's like being in the car and you're on a long trip and you just can't wait to get there, but you realize there's so much time that I could spend, you know, instead of thinking about the end goal, just focusing on the time that I have now and not missing the opportunity that God has given us. And so it reminds me in Acts, the book of Acts, you have chapter 1 and chapter 28, they're like bookends. You know, Jesus has been resurrected from the dead. He's with the disciples. There's over 500 of them that see Him, and they're eating together, and He tells them, wait, stay in Jerusalem. And for the promise that my Father has made, that you've heard me talk about, that John baptized you with water, you're going to be baptized with the Holy Spirit. And they still didn't understand it. They thought, Lord, is this the time you're gonna, you know, the kingdom of Israel is gonna be, we're gonna throw off the Romans and things are gonna turn out right politically for us? And He says, it's not for you to know the times and the dates, but when the Holy Spirit comes upon you, you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. And so, then they prayed into that. And then you know what happened. The church exploded. But it didn't explode like they thought it would. I mean, God we can't put Him in a box. He works so differently than we expect. And even at the end of Acts, Paul is arrested in Jerusalem, and they said, well, we want to release you. And he says, no, I'm appealing to Caesar. And then he goes to Rome, and he's on house arrest for 2 years. And it says that everybody that came to him, he preached the kingdom of God and the good news of Jesus Christ. And so all this to say is this year, 2020, has not turned out like we thought it would. But God is still moving. He's still at work. He's still active. And our call is to press in and to see what He has to say to us. Somebody said that intercessory prayer is spiritual defiance of what is in the name of what the Lord has promised. And we know that He promises, I'm doing a new thing. Don't you perceive it? Even in this chaos and this sadness, He's doing something great. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to be left behind. And I don't want to be focusing on the negative. I want to be totally entering into what He's promised and just declaring that for our body, for the state of North Carolina, for the United States, and for the whole world. And that we would be His witnesses. So, okay. Oh, wait, there's one really quick story. You want me to tell them about the gals or Miriam? And
maybe I'll just do that.
Okay, you can. Yeah. Woo. Woo. All right.
I'm going to move up a little bit to try to reach some of you that are outside. So I want to make sure that everybody understands that Annie and I are coming here about September 1, and our main goal is to lead ADT, Antioch Discipleship Training. And so, you know, I was just thinking, hopefully this is an appropriate metaphor, but, you know, I'm not a doctor and I don't understand the details of medicine, especially there's so much information about COVID that is just mind-boggling. But my understanding from the beginning was that doctors were saying the ultimate goal is that we get mastery over this. Not that there's a small percentage that get mastery and the rest of us sort of remain fearful and victims. But that we, as a herd, this is my understanding, please don't call newspapers and go crazy or get mad at me, but my understanding is the best thing would be if we all had herd immunity, kind of like chickenpox. Your mama wanted you to get chickenpox, right? I mean, so that's kind of the end goal. The point is that for the sake of, that's why we're coming here to do ADT, that all of us would gain mastery of something that Jesus called us to do and to be. We would be disciples who make disciples. That's what we're coming to train people into as we were trained by other people. We went into the mission field and we really felt like, well, there's a lot of people that don't seem to know what they're doing here. But there's one thing for sure, we definitely do not know what we're doing here. So, then we came back to the U.S. after 3 years overseas and we're like, where do you go to get discipleship training? And the Lord sent a family that lived like 5 miles away from us. If you knew where our house was, you'd think, that's a miracle. There's only like 50 people within 5 miles of where we live. So they sent missionaries who'd been training people in the Far East for 10 years. And been training disciple makers, and they trained us. So that's what we're kind of bringing. So I want to put in a plug for that, loud and clear, that everybody understands that that's why we're coming here. That's what we hope to do. We hope to do it with you. It's going to require about 10 hours a week of commitment, and we're going to require $500 up front. That's about it. Besides that, it's all up to you and to the partners that you develop while you're in there. So, there's we were in Raleigh, Durham for the last year, and we did Antioch Discipleship School with the Raleigh, Durham, Antioch Church. Annie and I participated in that. And while we were there, we were praying for people around us. And it was in a strip mall. We were meeting in a strip mall, a church office in a strip mall. And there is stores and restaurants from every nation there. And many of them Muslim. And so we were praying consciously and intentionally for the people who were around us. And then one day, Annie was at our meeting, our discipleship school meeting, and she, with a couple of other people, decided, hey, let's go over to this restaurant next door. It had just been bought by 2 Muslim women. Now, if you know anything about Raleigh and American immigrants and Muslim immigrants, you think it's pretty unusual for 2 Muslim women to buy a restaurant. That's not the normal. But anyway, they went over there, they presented a gift, and they engaged with these 2 Muslim women. That turned into a whole series of events that ended up discipling this Muslim woman and her daughter. And she wasn't, I don't know if I can really call her Muslim. She was from a Muslim background. She was not a practicing Muslim. And so one of the women's daughters, she came to America specifically to save this girl, this 16-year-old girl, from a lifestyle of depression, cutting, drug use, the wrong friends, everything like that. And this woman literally came to Annie and said, I think my daughter wants to join your church. Can she join your church? Is that okay? And we're like, this isn't the way this conversation normally happens. But I think the answer is yes. It led to a whole series of events where basically our whole ADS class, 25 people, and really our whole church started reaching out to, loving, and touching this woman and her daughter. And so that's something that's still going on today. We just got a call, a really exciting call, a couple of days ago, that this 17-year-old now, I think, girl, she, in August, she's going to turn 17. She is like ready to turn her life over to Jesus. And this is after like 4 or 5 months of people touching her, talking to her, being with her on a daily basis. When they were living in their car, somebody from our church gave them $1,000. When they were in need, somebody from our church put a $200 tip on their table. When they were in need of counsel, somebody from our church went there. It wasn't me and Annie. It wasn't just 1 or 2 other people. It was a whole body. And that's what we're moving into. So my question, my challenge for you today is, how many churches are there in this city? That's a really important question. And you might want to just think about it before you give an answer. I used to do this as a training question in the Dominican Republic. And I'd say that usually, there's millions, there's thousands. I mean, who could count all the churches in the world? I'd usually ask them, how many churches are there in the world? And they'd be like, and then I'd say, well, how many churches did Jesus say there was in the world? Somebody raised 1 finger up there. That's great. There's 1 church in the world. If there's only 1 church in the world, then how many churches are there in Boone? There's only 1. And that's really exciting, right? That's not depressing, that's exciting. Because that gives us power to say, we're working with a huge team. And it takes a huge team to reach 1 little family, like Zane and Miriam, who were running that restaurant. 1 little family. If it takes a huge team to reach that 1 family, then how many people does it take to reach the city of Boone? Because I got good news and bad news. There's a challenge that we are not called to pastor and disciple this little congregation, this little club, this little fold. We are challenged to disciple, to pastor, to lead to Christ, to evangelize, disciple, and train the entire city. The city of Boone, the city of Blowing Rock, the region. That's what we're challenged to do. Now, if that just pushes you back for a second, you're thinking, oh my goodness, how many people are there? And then you've got to start thinking, how many people can you touch personally? How many people will be the first phone call for you? How many people will call you first if their mother just got a cancer report? How many people? That's about the number of people that you can realistically have a serious touch on. How many people do you know well enough that if they say something, they just say some offhand comment that indicates to you that their marriage is in trouble? How many people do you know that you're going to stop everything and sit down with that person and have a real conversation? How many people like that are like that in your life? I don't think it's more than 10. Probably. But that means that if there's, let's say there's 100,000 people in the Boone region area, that means we need 10,000 people who are armed and ready and trained to go out and reach those people with a simple gospel, a simple story, and tools to make disciples. But before that, we need to be equipped by the Holy Spirit to do that. And how do you start doing that? So I just want to give you one thing today that you can start using and doing right now with some other people, and that you can start engaging, and that you can start engaging in the quest that, Holy Spirit, where are you leading me and guiding me? And that means where, to whom, and when. And so it just starts engaging in that whole challenge. So I'm not asking you personally, each individual, to reach the whole city. I'm just saying, you need to be part of that picture, or we're not doing our job. Because this church was not, I think Scott over and over, reinforces the fact that we are nimble and unique. To be able to meet in this space, to be able to not have our budget all about a building and a paid staff, Those are unique things that we own. Now, we need to step up from that into every single person here being able to go out, share something with a neighbor, and understand what it is to make disciples. But the key to that door, if you think of C.S. Lewis and The Lion and the Witch and the Wardrobe, you could say the main character in that story was the wardrobe, because that was the door to another dimension. And if you noticed that wardrobe, but you didn't have the key, how would you feel if you knew what was behind there, but you didn't have the key? So I'm just going to suggest the key to the wardrobe is intercessory prayer. And I just want to give you one tool to start doing that with one or two other people. And I really love it if you spend 5 minutes today with one other person that you are likely to be in ministry with. It could be husband and wife, or wife could be, it could be a close friend. Don't do this with a complete stranger unless you do it at 6 feet distance. But do it with somebody that you're likely to minister with, and just pray for about 5 minutes. Stop and pray for about 5 minutes. Now this is what we call a 5x5 prayer. And we learned it from some Colombians who had seen an incredible revival in the whole nation of Colombia that was infecting all kinds of prisons. And they had gained mastery so that there was all kinds of people leading all kinds of other people to Christ in all kinds of places. So I'm just going to challenge you with this. 5x5 prayer. 5 minutes a day. 5 days a week. For a period of 5 weeks or until you see results. Pray for 5 people that you know. In the sense that I was talking about earlier. People that you know already. Who are far from the Lord or who need to be trained or touched. 5 people that you know to receive 5 blessings. I'm not talking about putting some kind of bad stuff on them. I'm talking about that 5 openings. You would pray for 5 openings in their lives from the Lord. So just do these hand signals. If you can see my hands, do these hand signals with me, because it'll help you to remember this is just an opening the door thing. This is not the end of the story. This is not the last thing that you do. And this is just like a bounce pass in basketball. This is just something really simple that you begin to do on a regular basis. If you never pass in basketball, I'm not going to play with you, all right? So, 5 blessings, 5 openings. So the first thing, do this with your hand. Oh Lord, open the heavens. Open the heavens. Why is that? I don't want to be the first evangelist. I want to speak to somebody that God is already speaking to. So Lord, open the heavens over my friend Johnny, over my neighbor Bill, so you think of these 3 to 5 names. Think of those names right now as you're even going through this. Think of 3 to 5 names, people that you know that need these openings. So open the heavens. Secondly, open their hearts. So I just make this little heart symbol, right? Open their hearts. What I mean by that is that I don't want to speak to somebody that the Holy Spirit is not speaking to. I want to be in a team, and really, I don't want to be the first person in the team. Don't pass me the ball, Holy Spirit. I want to see you shoot first, all right? I want to see you do something first. So open their hearts. I don't want to go to people with closed hearts. I want you to open their hearts. Third, open their homes. This is a symbol for homes. Open their homes. Why is that? I don't want to be the only evangelist and disciple maker. My mother, I was praying this very prayer for my mother. And then she was having some difficulties and she needed to have somebody in her home helping her. Who'd she hire? Her gardener, who'd been a member of the same church that we were a member of for like 10 years. God brought the other person into her home. I didn't have to go and do everything. This woman, Lori, was doing the things that we couldn't do. Because I was praying this prayer, I believe Lord sent somebody into her home. Fourth, open their hands. I'm sorry, I missed one. Open the highways. Open the highways. Meaning that I cannot be when I get stuck, I need to be unstuck. The Lord needs to do that. If you've ever shared a gospel with somebody, then you know that the first time might be really easy. The second time you visit their home, there's probably going to be obstacles. There's going to be a sick child. There's going to be somebody going to the hospital. There's going to be somebody that needs some sudden thing. That's the kind of thing that happens. So open the highways so that we would not get stuck. And the last thing was open their hands. And that is because I don't want to be a single person who carries a virus and nobody else ever gets it. I want to see herd mastery of the gospel, of making disciples, of multiplication. I want to see an incredible crowd. I don't want to be part of a diminishing minority. I want to be part of a multiplying majority. That's the exciting thing. And we can be part of that if we begin to do these things, if we get permission from the Holy Spirit, and we begin to take a few simple risks and go out and do these things. So what I'd really like you to do right now is to gather for a few minutes and just pray for 3 people, 3 to 5 people with one other person. Just do these things. Do these 5 things. And that'll kind of cement it in your mind and your tongue. Your tongue will remind you if your mind forgets, because now you will have said it once with somebody else. Lastly, if this little conversation here makes you aware that you want to be licensed by the Holy Spirit for this kind of lifestyle, and you never feel like the Lord has really just engaged you and that you've never been baptized with the Holy Spirit for a purpose, then I'd just like you to stand up wherever you are, and there's going to be people who are going to come around, hopefully in a distance sensitive way, and just pray for you, okay? People who've been trained to pray and have experienced that. Secondly, if this conversation makes you feel like, you know, I've never really sealed the deal with the Lord. Like, I don't know what it was like to just follow Jesus. I know what it's like to go to a church. I know what it's like to say I'm a Christian or something like that. I don't know what it's like to be 100% following Jesus. Then just do the same thing. Just stand up, and when somebody's going to come around and pray with you, for you. And lastly, if you feel like you want to more fully engage in a little congregation, part of a much greater body that is engaging in this kind of lifestyle of challenge and victory and multiplication and mastery, then just do the same thing. Just stand up and somebody will come around, pray with you, for you. All right? I think we're going to have one more worship song while we're doing this. But stay around regardless. If you're not standing up, gather with one other person and just pray these 5 blessings for these people together. And then we'll see. What I really want to hear is next week, I want to hear what comes out of this. Okay? And then see if you can commit to doing that same, spending that same 5 minutes every day this week. And see what comes of it. Lord, we bless you. We thank you that you have sent us out. And you are a sending Lord. And you've made us missionaries to wherever we are. And we ask you to engage us and equip us for that lifestyle of challenge and mastery and victory. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Woo! Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
thy presence, my Lord. Be thou my wisdom, and thou my true word. I ever with thee, and thou with me, Lord. Thou my great Father, and I thy true Son. Thou in me dwelling, and I will be one. Riches thy healing, no man's empty praise. Thou mine inheritance, now and always. Thou and thou only, but first in my heart. Thy King of heaven, my treasure thou art. Oh God, be my everything, be my delight. Be Jesus, my glory, my soul satisfied. Oh God, be my everything, be my delight. Be Jesus, my glory, my soul satisfied. My Jesus, you satisfy. My Jesus, you satisfy. My Jesus, you satisfy. My Jesus, you satisfy. Thy King of heaven, my victory. May I reach heaven's shores, oh bright and sky. Part of my own heart, whatever still be my vision, oh Lord. Part of my own, whatever still be my vision, oh Lord.